Welcome to today's Explainer. Right now, we're launching a high-stakes investigation into the global military AI arms race, and honestly, the pretty chilling reality of lethal autonomous weapon systems. We're literally standing on the edge of a third revolution in warfare, right up there with gunpowder and nuclear arms. And the decisions we're making today about artificial intelligence, they're going to reshape global security forever. So let's kick things off with a slightly provocative question to really anchor this investigation. Could an algorithmic glitch on Wall Street actually show us how the next global conflict might begin? I know, it sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie, but as we hand over more and more complex decisions to machines, financial markets might just hold the terrifying blueprint for our future battlefields. Think back to May 2010, when the stock market experienced this massive flash crash. High-frequency trading algorithms basically just started reacting to each other in completely unpredictable ways. The result? $1 trillion wiped out in exactly 5 minutes. The Dow plummeted 9%. Now, the algorithms were acting rationally on their own, but collectively, they spiraled out of control way faster than any human could step in. So imagine that exact same dynamic, but instead of trading stocks, the algorithms are trading fire. To really understand this threat, we need to investigate 5 key areas: the AI arms race, automation versus autonomy, the human loop, the accountability gap, and finally, preventing a flash war. Section 1, the AI arms race and global geopolitics. Okay, so the geopolitical competition for AI supremacy is accelerating at an absolute breakneck speed. Just look at the data from the prestigious AAAI conference between 2012 and 2017. The U.S. share of presenters actually dropped from 41% down to 34%, while China's share more than doubled, jumping from 10% to 23%. Nations know that dominating artificial intelligence means dominating global affairs. It's not just some academic shift, right? It's a high-stakes race for superior military capability. Moving on to Section 2, automation versus autonomy, and drawing the line. We really have to draw a hard line here between these two concepts, because confusing them is dangerous. Automation is predictable, it's passive. Think of a landmine. It just executes a pre-programmed rule. Step on it, and it detonates. It doesn't learn, it doesn't choose. Autonomy, on the other hand, is dynamic. Systems like the IAI Harpy loitering munition actually perceive their environment. They search for targets, and they independently decide to engage with little to no human input. The machine itself is making a contextual choice. And we aren't just flipping a switch overnight from manual to autonomous. We're actually sliding across a really dangerous gradient. Warfare is transitioning from simple task automation into conditional autonomy and finally reaching these highly autonomous capabilities, where the machine is making independent decisions within human-defined goals. It's a massive, fundamental shift in who actually holds the authority to use lethal force. That brings us to Section 3, the human loop and command and control. We can break this whole system down into 3 categories based on the degree of human intervention. First up, there's human in the loop, where a system might suggest a target, but lethal action absolutely requires a real person to pull the trigger. Next is human on the loop. Here, the system tracks and engages independently, but a human is actively overseeing the process and can hit the brakes if something goes wrong. And finally, we reach the ultimate extreme, out of the loop. This is the total elimination of human oversight after activation. We're talking about a fire-and-forget paradigm where the machine has complete 100% independence. When we look at modern hardware, like the Boeing ATS high-speed taxi, it hits you that we are no longer talking about science fiction here. These systems are operating in hazardous environments without the fatigue or the emotional biases of human soldiers. But their sheer capability really forces us to ask a tough question. How much control are we actually willing to hand over? Because today, humans are increasingly seated in these incredibly complex control rooms, essentially acting as supervisors over vast networks of sensors, UAVs, and ground forces. This immense data fusion is fundamentally shifting the human's role from an active operator who pulls the trigger to a manager who watches a screen. Now, the human is supposed to be the fail-safe, right? But here's the catch. As machine data moves faster and faster, our human reaction times stay exactly the same. Interestingly enough, U.S. defense policies, specifically Directive 3000.09, mandates that these systems allow for appropriate levels of human judgment. But crucially, this doesn't explicitly guarantee manual human control over every single engagement. The word appropriate is incredibly flexible.
It acknowledges that the level of human judgment might differ depending on the weapon or the domain or the operational context, which basically leaves the door wide open for machines to select and engage targets without further intervention as long as they meet certain certification standards. Which naturally leads us to Section 4, the accountability gap and the question of who is responsible. International humanitarian law is incredibly strict. Militaries absolutely must distinguish between combatants and civilians and ensure that any military advantage outweighs civilian harm. And crucially, if those rules are broken, a person has to be held accountable. But full autonomy shatters this entirely. If a machine misidentifies a civilian target because of some visual glitch, the traditional legal chain of command completely breaks down. We hit a massive philosophical and legal wall here, perfectly captured by legal philosopher H.L.A. Hart. He notes that punishment must involve consequences normally considered unpleasant. And that's the rub, because you fundamentally cannot punish an algorithm. You can't make a robot feel pain for committing a war crime. Sure, you can delete its code or you can dismantle its hardware, but there is absolutely no moral reckoning. And this creates what experts call the accountability gap. It's an unsolvable legal nightmare. If an autonomous weapon operates completely out of the loop and violates international law, who goes to jail? The commander who deployed it? The programmer who wrote the code years ago? The manufacturer? If the artificial intelligence acts unpredictably, doing something it was never explicitly programmed to do, holding a human commander criminally liable under the traditional requirements of intent just seems fundamentally misaligned. We end up with a direct perpetrator of a war crime that simply cannot be held responsible.
Finally, Section 5, preventing a flash war and implementing safeguards.
Just like those Wall Street trading bots we talked about earlier, military AI is programmed to win at all costs. And honestly, that is terrifying. AI to AI interactions happen in fractions of a second. If adversarial algorithms face off, they might rationally choose immediate, short-term tactical escalation just to gain an advantage. This could trigger an unstoppable chain reaction. And worse, if panicked humans try to intervene under that immense pressure, they might actually increase the volatility by introducing sudden uncertainty into the system. So, taking a page directly out of Wall Street's post-crash playbook, experts have proposed a fascinating solution: mandating automated circuit breakers. Step 1 requires establishing measurable battlefield escalation metrics, like a sudden massive spike in combatants or weapons used. Step 2 is automating a system-wide pause when those thresholds are exceeded. The systems literally force themselves to temporarily halt offensive actions. And finally, Step 3 ensures that while weapons are paused, intelligence and surveillance systems remain fully operational. This gives human commanders the critical time and visibility they need to breathe, assess, and de-escalate before a minor skirmish spirals into a world war. As we rush toward a future where algorithms dictate the pace of warfare and where technological supremacy is viewed as the absolute ultimate deterrent, we are left standing at a profound moral crossroads. We can build the circuit breakers. We can define the rules of engagement. But we still have to ask ourselves, if a machine makes the final call, who answers for the consequences? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll see you next time.